look like. But in addition to that, magazine named him one of the 100 most creative in business and most creative on Twitter. The Wall Street Journal called him one of 12 inventing the future of retirement. And Money Magazine called his work in the future of financial services a game changer. He has also been recognized in Switzerland as one of 15 world minds, changing how we live, work, and play. His book, The Longevity Economy, was named one of the CEO Reads bestsellers for business. So everybody, please help me welcome, sharing with us, first off to kick our event, Dr. Joseph Coughlin.
Great, thank you so much, Alicia. It's wonderful to be here again. It's not exactly a huge stadium, but what a crowd you've promised. Nearly 200,000 people. This is simply amazing. And the campaign for a cause is more than just financial literacy. It is about longevity literacy, how we will all live not just longer, but how we will live better in life tomorrow. So I want to thank you, Alicia, Swan, and your entire community for having me back.
Thank you so much.
What I hope to do today for a few minutes is to give you some insight as to how COVID-19 is affecting us physiologically, how it's affecting us in behavior, but then ultimately give you a little glimpse as to what I think my humble view of what that future might look like. So let's get started, and let's throw a few of those slides up so folks can follow me along. We have the slides? There we go. Ladies and gentlemen, this indeed is your retirement fire drill. But more importantly, it is a longevity fire drill. What I want to show you today is the stress, the anxiety that is associated with COVID-19, frankly, is always with us. Yes, we are having a pandemic pause on how we think about what is important in life. Let's learn from this, though. Let's see how we can navigate all kinds of stresses in our lives, not just to come out on the other side, but to come out on the other side better. So let's think about it. The pandemic has us all panicked. This is a one-of-a-kind of event for 100 years that is affecting all of us. The challenge we have, the question we have, is how scared should you be? The fact of the matter is, all of us are scared. The fact of the matter is this is, shall we say, an existential crisis. It threatens the lives of not just ourselves, but all the people we love. It affects our money. It affects our lives. It affects our families. But let's take a pause for a moment. All of us, whether you're a campaigner or simply somebody out there trying to learn a little bit about what this all means. We all face panic at different times of our lives. Remember the Great Recession? It never left us. We still benchmark what is different today from what it was 10 years ago. We're even still citing issues around the Spanish flu over 100 years ago, trying to learn what that might mean for this now. So fear is normal, and I want to get into what that fear might actually mean. Well, let's talk about what the fear is looking like. If you're blessed and you've not had to confront COVID directly, you're watching it on the news. You're watching a constant flow of information. You're looking at a conflicting sense of data. What is working? What is not working? What medicine might come out? When might it come out? What are the different numbers that we should look at? And more importantly, that media is not just constant. It is not just crushing. Indeed, it is conflicting. So as a result, it is leaving all of us with a sense of great uncertainty as to what that means. Think about it. We're even learning a whole new vocabulary. We're learning things such as flattening the curve. We're learning things like thinning the herd. It's a whole new thing. And by the way, all of us like to talk about how much we love innovation. Generally speaking, most of us don't like the new because the new is something we don't understand. We don't quite understand it at all. And what we don't understand, we often fear. And think about this. We are constantly getting information. This is a U.S. map, but look at it. What do you do when you see something like this? The first thing you do when you see the map around COVID is, where am I? Where do I fit on the map? The things that scare us have three characteristics at least. Are they novel? That is it new? Do I understand what's going on or not going on? Is it proximate? Is it near me? Because when you see this map, even if you don't do it consciously, you immediately look to see, where am I? And by the way, the next characteristic is it urgent? So is it near me? Is it new? And is it near me? And by the way, the new thing is we're trying to figure it out. Do I run? Do I hide? Do I fight? And one of the things that we think about is that when we're stressed and afraid, we go into what is called fight or flight mode. It's often called the reptilian brain in psychology, if you will. Think about it. When you're confronted with something you don't understand, you get more and more stressed. And believe it or not, stress is a good thing. When you think about retirement planning, long-term care planning, you want to get people to think more about what might be. You want to get them stressed enough so they want to know more. They want to understand. They want to take action. But what happens when I stress you too much? I start pushing you out of the curve. This is called the Yerkes-Dodson's law. That is, I want to get you just anxious and stressed enough to get your attention, to get your action. The COVID crisis has now pushed our reptilian brains over the edge. We're now in the fear zone. We don't know whether to fight or to run. So that fight or flight mode is what's going on and changing exactly how we look at the world. And your brain is changing. Look at the scan. The brain on the left is a normal brain, but under an fMRI scan, when you're under great stress and anxiety, different parts of your brain start firing up. So really, you're not just processing new and novel and maybe threatening information. It's actually changing how your brain is processing information and changing overall structure. But one of the things we also know, it changes you physiologically. From work we do in the MIT Age Lab around stress and driving and stress and many other things, you start to suffer from what we call tunnel vision. Think about it. When you're scared, when that cortisol hormone starts rushing and adrenaline starts running and you feel that anxious feeling in your stomach, you may start to sweat and perspire. Believe it or not, you start looking straight ahead. When you're stressed behind the wheel of a car, you stop seeing on the side, your peripheral vision. Well, that's good because you're trying to decide to run or fight what's in front of you. The challenge, however, is you're also not seeing opportunities to the side of you. So the COVID crisis is more than just a threat to our physical well-being. It is profoundly changing how we look at the world. And we know from the terrible tragedy that happened years ago in Japan that started with an earthquake and then a tsunami and then a nuclear accident, earthquakes and the like. We knew from studying the brains of people who actually survived that crisis, are you ready for this? Their brain actually shrunk. And what happened is they stopped making many connections in their brains. You see, the photo on the left is a normal brain cell, a neuron, if you will, that makes many connections. These connections are the things that allow us to be creative, to be innovative, to reach, to communicate. But when we're under stress for a prolonged period, we narrow down. We stop making connections. We start to become uniformly focused on what I need to do right now. And we miss the opportunities, and we also may miss some of the threats that are off to the side. So that's the physiological side. I know you're saying, gee, I did not sign up for a physiology class or how stress necessarily affects us. But I want you to understand how COVID is affecting all of us from the inside out. So let's get to the outside now. How is COVID affecting us in a behavioral sense? Well, guess what? Age, as you might imagine, from someone from the Age Lab says age matters. As we age, how many of you have already said the following words or heard them from your parents? That life is too short for fill in the blank of whatever that negative thing is. You see, as we get older, we choose to narrow out negative information. We choose to say that, look, my runway is getting shorter, so as a result, I don't have time for bad news. Or I become overconfident. That is, hey, I've made it 50, 60, 70, 80 years. I can handle this. Well, the bad news about that, whether you're a campaigner or a client, is that sometimes that overconfidence does not mean you're necessarily competent. You may be missing very important information about retirement, the fact that you may need long-term care, the way you should behave during the pandemic, all kinds of things. How about younger people? They don't quite have it together either, because no matter what you tell them that may be positive, they want to know the negative. They want to know the downside. They want to know the instructions. 1, 2, 3, 4, and never skip 2 before I get to 3, even though you can see it coming. So here's the bad news and the good news. Older adults focus on the positive. They focus on what they can control in front of them. Younger people are more neurotic about what might be in the future. They want those instructions, if you will. But if we go to older adults and we start thinking as a group, what is it I can do? How can I be empowered? They will rise. If we tell younger people what it is that they need to do step by step to protect themselves, and as they get older, have families and significant others, then they step up as well. Age and communication matters in times of crisis. How about gender? If age matters, so does gender. So, with all the men in the audience, think about that fight or flight mode. We always want to do something. When we're stressed, we want to fix the problem. We want to do something. We act. Well, we may act. It doesn't mean that we necessarily act correctly, that we take the right judgment. We often don't take enough information in to get that inflow. We just want to fight or flight. How about women? Women are equally fearful in a time of stress, whether it's COVID or a life crisis, a family crisis, a health crisis, whatever it might be. But what we know is that she is more likely, shall we say, to phone a friend, to look online at the issues, to try to explore what her options are, to talk to friends that have similar experiences, similar resources, to ask, how would they deal with this issue overall? And we become more risk adverse. So think about this. When we are under stress, if we were given a gain of certain $50 lottery ticket versus a chance of 0, we will go for that guarantee of 50, even if we had a chance of buying another lottery ticket where it could have been 0 or $105. Under stress, most of us will go with the risk adverse, shall we say, the safe choice. And we also know psychologically that we are likely also to change on other fronts as well. If I don't understand it, if it's vague, if it's ambiguous, such as how many jelly beans are in a jar, and that depends on how much money you get, I don't like it. Think about it. When you're fearful, when you're fearing for your life or fearing for your money or family, whatever it might be, we only go for the sure bet. In fact, we start to lean more on what we think our confidence level is in us rather than smart advice. We see this in health. We see this in wealth. Not exactly a great way to make decisions overall. And we become very loss averse. For my cousins in Canada, I wanted to make sure I added just not US dollars, but Canadian dollars to the picture. What happens is we go into a mode of just don't lose my money, which means we come very close to new opportunities. The challenge is to fight that fight or flight mode, to really try to remain open to the good things that may be happening around us, the new opportunities that are out there. So what are people feeling right now? Pretty much no. My team at the MIT Age Lab has been doing a series of surveys across North America on trying to understand how are attitudes changing, how are behaviors changing. So I'm going to give you the very geeky term of how the world is thinking right now during the pandemic. We are feeling meaninglessness, normlessness, and powerlessness. Let me translate that into something that the rest of us understand, so to speak. The fact is, we don't know what's going on. Things have lost their meaning overall. Try to explain to me from all this conflicting information on the media, what's happening, what's going to work, what's not. When do we get back to so-called normal? Normlessness. The rules, the norms, they're broken. They don't make any sense anymore. We once used to say you can depend on death and taxes. Well, apparently we can depend on death, but even taxes have been moved off. Weddings have been postponed. Schools have gone online. Even taxes were postponed for 4 or 5 months overall. But what we're feeling most, that is the most unnerving, is powerlessness. That is our own ability to affect our future. That uncertainty contributes to an amazing amount of stress and anxiety. And what do we feel when we feel all that? The words that came back to us in our study was that the number 1 through 3 words people felt were they felt worried, they felt stressed, and more importantly, they felt unsure. We all know that. I'm just giving you articulating it. But that constant feeling of that for the last 5, 6, 7, 10, 12 plus weeks, depending where you are in the world, is starting to change our mentality. So getting back to normal becomes more difficult. This is where our literacy of understanding how we are going to navigate life tomorrow becomes even more important. For you campaigners, giving people hope, giving them a roadmap, giving them information is critical to that new sense of control. For all of us that are not campaigners and simply, shall we say, clients, we have to take guidance and smart advice and to try to think calmly about what's in front of us. We will get through to the other side, but we have to ask ourselves, what is that other side going to look like? And so when you're panicked, what do? You buy toilet paper. Remember all the memes and GIFs that were out there that were making fun of people buying toilet paper. Believe it or not, it was probably one of the most rational things people were doing. Because when you're panicked, you say, what do I understand? What can I do? What is it I can do to take control? We all know that we're going to use toilet paper eventually. And at that point, the toilet paper was on the shelf, so I'm buying lots and lots of toilet paper. We see this every time it snows, whether it's Canada, upstate New York, the Midwest, where it snows all the time. Every time there's a snowstorm, people go out and buy things like they've never seen snow before. Why? They're managing that stress. They're managing that control. They're trying to take agency, that is, their own control back to manage some degree of certainty in their lives. Well, there's a new toilet paper. You guessed it. Technology has become the new toilet paper. From the studies we did at the MIT Age Lab and the survey we've done through the pandemic, overwhelmingly people bought toilet paper, but there was a real boom on people buying technology. Not just streaming services so they could do Netflix and chill, but rather they were also buying services that kept them connected with loved ones, kept them connected with older folks. And in fact, the folks that were more likely to have children as well as elderly parents bought technologies that were more security oriented. So secure doorbells, ways of monitoring the safety around the home. So yes, technology not only is changing how we live, but indeed, it has become the new way to take control. And I would say it has become the new toilet paper in uncertainty. So how do we end this? How do I think of where we're going? I've explained to you how this is affecting us physiologically, how it's changing us behaviorally. But what's that future look like? What is that new literacy that we're going to need, that longevity literacy, so that we don't just survive the pandemic, but on the other side, all of us and all of our families, we thrive on the other side. There are many pundits out there that suggest that the pandemic has been transformative. I don't think they're so much incorrect as they are woefully incomplete. In my mind, COVID-19 has accelerated things that most of us already saw out there, now broadly in nearly everyone's home. As one science fiction writer once said, the future is already here. It's just not widely distributed. So let me show you how I think it's already becoming distributed. Think about it. Home services are now becoming more normal, not just for the millennials that are sitting in the audience that want their meals delivered or want to call up their car. Suddenly, home services to the house for you, your loved ones, for your parents, your elderly mother who may be living by herself has become a new lifeline. That's not going to go back to so-called normal. There is no going back. When we get stressed and we see a crisis, we go up with stress and anxiety. We seek knowledge. We come up with an understanding. And as we get to the very peak, we start coming back down to normal. But guess what? We never go back down to the same level of calmness or the same behavior that we did before. We are changed. In the literature, we call this punctuated equilibrium. We adapt. And one of those new adaptations is that home is no longer going to be a platform for living. It's going to be a platform for service. How about work from anywhere? We're talking about working from home. Well, no, it's actually more than that. This is going to be working from anywhere, whether it's a cafe, whether it's in the office, at home, in the airport, whatever it might be. When you see companies like Facebook, Twitter, financial companies, law offices, those places that are amenable to working distant, They're all now saying that from 25, 40, 50, as high as 75% of their workforce, they now see in the near future working from home. Many of us were already doing this. We wanted flexibility, but this is going to become the new normal that many of us are going to have to adapt to. Lifelong school. We may be lamenting that our kids had to spend hours on Zoom, or I had to teach my graduate students on Zoom for much of the semester. But the fact of the matter is, this is the new normal. That education, or living a life where school is never out, is the new normal. For those of us who are looking at retirement, this actually means not just our kids going to school, not just our kids going to college online, but this is the opportunity to ensure that our skills are competitive for a lifetime. So for those of us who want to change careers as our retirement plan, there's no excuse that you don't know how. Now the new normal is take a class, and that does not necessarily mean going to college to do it. And health and caregiving. Think about this. Telehealth used to be something only researchers thought about, or elite hospitals did, where you could get a checkup a day in your home, a strep throat or a flu check for a little kid at home. Now we can do it with our phone. We can do it with our computer. We can check in on mom or dad to see how we're doing without having to read dated magazines, waiting in long lines, and making appointments with doctors who seemingly think that the only time that we're available is during work hours between 8 o'clock and 4 o'clock. Indeed, telemedicine, telehealth is the new health and in your home. How about finally work and retirement? The fact of the matter is the vast number of us said that we wanted to retire from those jobs that we'd been working in for 10, 20, 30, maybe even 40 years. But even between Canada and the United States, nearly a third of us also said we want to work until we drop. Not always for the money, but for the meaning, for the social connectivity, for having a reason to get out. Unfortunately, COVID-19 is really torpedoing many of our retirement plans financially, as well as our sense of security. So rethinking how we're going to work and live tomorrow is an important part, not just of our retirement plan, but of our longevity plan overall. And then finally, the real legacy of COVID-19 may be the youngest among us. Gen Z, those kids in their late teens and early 20s. Sociology and psychology tells us if I can understand what you experienced between 17 and 22, whether it was the economy or politics, current events, music, fashion, whatever it is, that has a profound impact on how you see the world. What's right, what's wrong, what you like, what you don't like, whether the price of gas is truly cheap versus very expensive. Quick example, gasoline, $2.49 a gallon. Some people say that's a good price. But I grew up in a time where I remember pumping gas for 25 cents a gallon. So $2.49 in my mind will never be cheap. The real legacy is, will Gen Z, in decades to come, trust institutions, trust government, really believe that even the things that we took for granted, such as religious practice over 2,000 years, schooling at home, graduation, prom, whatever it might be, if those can be disrupted, what else can be disrupted? So the real outcome of pandemic and COVID-19 is really going to be written in the pages as these young people become parents, consumers, and voters. So finally, I want to ask you, Alicia and Swan were kind enough to give me a moment to ask you for help. We at the MIT Age Lab are recruiting people just like you and loved ones that you have to help us better understand how are you providing care to an older loved one. I don't care if it's just calling up mom and dad saying, hi, how are you? To the much more elaborate care around medicine. If you're interested, if you want to volunteer, take a few surveys. That's all we're asking for. We just want to learn from your experiences. Send us an email. We'll put you on the list, and you'll hear from us over occasionally in terms of asking you, how are you navigating life? How are you caring for a loved one? We're making a panel from around the world. We want you to be part of that. Alicia and the entire Convention for a Cause community, WFSB, I thank you so much for having me. If any of you want to follow me and you can't sleep, please follow me on Twitter, LinkedIn, and sure, Instagram works too. Thank you all. Thank you, Alicia, for everything you're all doing. Good luck.
Thank you so much, Dr. Coughlin. You have been able to really give us certainty as to what many of us thought would be temporary, but now we're with your perspective, helping us understand that a lot of these changes are actually going to be permanent. And again, just re-emphasizing why we're having this event today. So yes, everyone, please, if you can give Dr. Coughlin a big, big hand and also help him by emailing him and being part of that survey so that we can help reach out to more families and help them give vision for their future. Thank you so much, Dr. Coughlin. And with that, the MIT Age Lab is actually also sponsored by a company called Transamerica. And Transamerica is also the biggest sponsor in our Convention for a Cause. We have been so excited and proud to have been able to partner with Transamerica for over 20 years. And we really want to thank them. And today we will have, the Chief Operations Officer from Transamerica, Jay Orlandi, share with us about what to expect, our partnership together. Jay Orlandi, as Chief Operations Officer, oversees so many different departments, from strategy, corporate development, government and political affairs, human resources, technology, information security, data and analytics, and the list goes on and on and on. In addition to that, he is the chairman of the board for Aegon Transamerica Foundation and the Transamerica Institute. Everyone, please help me welcome Chief Operation Officer of Transamerica, Jay Orlandi.
Thanks so much, Alicia. I'm really, really excited to be here and join the whole team. Thanks for that rousing introduction. As noted, I'm the COO of Transamerica, which is a role I'm quite proud of. I actually spent quite a bit of my time in my career at the company working really closely with the World Financial Group, with World System Builders, and with Swan and Alicia and many in the team that you've met here today. I'm going to start out, if we could move to the first slide here and just give a little bit of a context of Transamerica and what we're all about. Moving on to the next page, there is our purpose. So as an organization, many of you have heard of Transamerica. You've probably seen that great big pyramid building in San Francisco, which is an important icon and still is a logo we use today. But what all of that represents is about our purpose. It's about helping people achieve a lifetime of financial security. And the solutions that we offer, I think, benefit society in a variety of ways. We help our customers throughout the course of their life. So the idea of longevity in the lifespan is important. And whether that's involved in saving and investing products, whether it's involved in protecting ourselves and our loved ones, or it's preparing for an active and meaningful retirement. And we choose those words very carefully. It's saving, investing, protecting, retiring. It's also about the intersection of wealth and health. And much of what you're going to hear today, much of what the system that the WSB team has built is really about the baseline for what is needed to ensure that you've achieved those end goals, which is actually pretty exciting. If I can move to the next slide, please. As I mentioned, these are the core principles on which our product portfolio is based. Transamerica is a large organization. We operate in the U.S. and have other operations in the Americas, including in Canada and Latin America. We're also part of a much larger organization that has a global footprint called Aegon, based in the Netherlands. And I think the ability to leverage a global footprint and to understand the important trends in preparing for financial readiness, preparing for retirement, and ensuring a literacy for yourself and your loved ones is really critical to what it is that we do. I think the threshold point of understanding the intersection of wealth and health really begins with financial literacy, which I know is something that we're passionate about, and also the WSB team is passionate about. So if I can go to the next slide, please, which is the crux of what I wanted to speak with all of you about. World Financial Group is an organization that has been around for more than a generation, and it has its background in an early organization that started with an idea. It was a foundation about building a business. It was about building a means to help people and to help families. And really having that sort of purpose is about the best thing you can ask for of anything. In our previous history, Transamerica and its predecessor companies had distributed through the World Financial Group, and were so intrigued at the options that this model offered that we ultimately ended up acquiring the entire company, which has been an amazing opportunity for us. And has constantly been a beacon of strength and continued growth throughout our organization. What inspires me most about World Financial Group is that I'll quote our CEO, my boss, who once said that it's a pretty amazing system where we have a distribution group and thousands of loyal people who actually look like our customers, who look like America. This actually is a microcosm of where we want to be and who we want to be as a company. And if you ask any life insurance company, all of our good competitors, where they would like to continue to grow in enhancing their product portfolio and enhancing their footprint, it's about expanding in the middle market, in the mass affluent, in the underserved markets. And what's really impressive about WFG is that the demography of our distributors, of the families we're helping, of those who are trying to teach financial literacy and important principles in a world that is very dynamic and changing every day. And WFG actually has the ability to do that, unlike almost any other distribution organization I've been a part of and I've seen anyone else has been a part of. And that's a testament to WFG's growth. WSB has been a part of this all along. If you go to WFG's homepage, you're going to see a picture there that dates back to around the time of our founding. And Swan Nguyen is like Jedi Yoda is standing right there in the picture over the rest of the folks. He's been with us from the start. He was there at the time that our great organizations have come together. I've had the amazing pleasure of being working very closely with Swan, Alicia, and many others within the WSB system, serving on our Chairman's Council, which is kind of an inside kitchen cabinet of the top brass within WFG. And what's most amazing with that is the absolute alignment and the commitment to not just growth, but how we're going to grow. There's a really important aspect of the continuation of helping families. You're not going to see many other companies, particularly financial services companies, where an important metric, what we would call a key performance indicator, is focused primarily on number of families helped. And you'll be hearing from the CEO and president of World Financial Group later, who probably will talk about some of the same stuff. But I think that's really, really critical, is that we're constantly focusing on how we're helping people. And if you can help people, not only is the end result great for those that are being helped, but it's inspirational, it's aspirational to be able to grow your own business and to be able to bring others and recruit others into that world where it's all about helping families support their plans to save, invest, protect, and retire. So I think there's an amazing marriage of what Transamerica can offer, what the entire WFG model and, in fact, the WSB model is built on. So it's about building the system. It's about repeat, wash, repeat, rinse, repeat. We're doing the same thing over and over again. That is actually raising all ships. And the more people that come into the family, the better it is for all of them. And as Alicia mentioned in the introduction, one of my roles with the company is to chair the Aegon Transamerica Foundation, which is our charitable foundation. We're a big company. We actually contribute a lot in time and talent and treasure in all of our communities. We put a lot of money at play in many of the areas in which we live and work. So I say that coming from the position as a chairman of a charitable foundation, that it truly amazes me the work that the Convention for a Cause, which is one of a handful of many, many more charitable institutions of which Swan, Alicia, and others are a part, to consistently give back to the community. that's really putting your money where your mouth is. So the Convention for a Cause is actually a really special opportunity to help families and then also put that money to work back into the community. And I think all of that starts with, in our own foundation, as I mentioned, we talk about the intersection of wealth and health. And we try to handle our giving in a way that supports financial literacy. It supports health and human services. So I think it's a core tenet of what we try to do, and also a very core tenet of what WSB is trying to do to ensure financial literacy as essentially the foundational threshold issue to helping people secure a better future. All of that stuff I talked about at the beginning about mission statements and purpose, none of that happens if you don't have the very baseline to understand essential financial literacy and how that can impact the compounding benefit of growth over time. And I've not seen anyone do that better than the WSB team, which is really exciting. I don't know how well all of you, I know there are many people here listening on the line. I'm always inspired by just the sheer magnitude and the quality of folks that are consistently attracted to the team. But I can tell you without a doubt that Swan's undying interest in continuing to help people drive this home has been an absolute critical component for us in our growth. We have many business lines. Some of them are up, some of them are down every year. That's part of that is by design, as any organization that you want to be able to spread your risk around. But I can say that WFG and WSB have been growing year over year over year in a really impressive way. And Swan has been there from the beginning. He's been, more than half of the agents within our WFG system are affiliated with Swan and his team. He's got the largest team of our international footprints within the World Financial Group in the U.S. and Canada. He was instrumental in helping build real critical inroads into our Chinese and Philippines operations. Has just been there from the start. So really excited to be able to continue to partner with the WSB team and to be here today. So I can move on to the next slide, please. And this is, I wanted to just underscore the point about the importance of WSB's program in financial literacy and in a foundational educational platform to understand that and to save, invest, and protect your family, your loved ones, and your future. I think this presents a really incredible opportunity. I've seen recruiting for WFG and WSB hit all-time high thresholds. The levels that we've seen in a really insane time in the midst of a global pandemic. I know there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of trepidation out there. People are unsure what to do, and you're all familiar with the great quotes about how you should never waste a good crisis for opportunity. Out of great tragedy can come opportunity, and I think at a time like this, when there is so much uncertainty, when there's so much fear about financial wellness, about the wherewithal to continue with your plans, being able to understand and learn that for yourself as a system to help your friends, your family, and others, to bring them in and to at the same time grow a business out of the sort of ashes that we're facing right now in the midst of the pandemic presents a really compelling opportunity, probably more so than I've seen in recent years. And this is a really exciting time to begin that work. So with that, I want to thank all of you for spending some time with me today. I know you've got a lot ahead of you on the pipeline. I know there are a lot of engaging, exciting speakers. On behalf of myself personally, of my family, and the entire Transamerica family, I want to thank WFG, I want to thank WSB, I want to thank Swan and Alicia for allowing me to take some time with you today. And welcome aboard, and let's go do this. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Jay. And again, we are also honored to be able to partner with Transamerica as well. And next, I want to thank a huge platform who has been able to, as you mentioned, Jay, has been able to help us continue doing business even throughout this entire pandemic. And actually, even though WSB has been using Zoom since 2014, but now Zoom has become a household name, and being able to connect so many different organizations and industries and pretty much survive during this pandemic as well. So I'm so excited to introduce to you Harry Moseley, Global Chief Information Officer of Zoom Video Communications. Harry is a current global CIO of Zoom, and he has been inducted into CIOs Magazine's Hall of Fame, recognized as one of the top 100 CIOs by Computer World, and honored by Irish Magazine as one of its annual Wall Street 50. Everyone, please help me welcome Harry Moseley. And of course, in Zoom fashion, we're taking this call through Zoom.
Hi, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Alicia, it's delightful to be here with you this morning, and thank you for the privilege of joining your organization and this wonderful event this morning. So thank you for that.
Thank you so much.
So just, I'd like to make some comments, and then we'll go into the Q&A. Is that good?
Absolutely.
Okay. So I wanted to talk about a variety of topics, and one of those topics is the different generations that we're encountering all the time. So you got millennials, we've got Gen Z, you've got baby boomers, and you've got seniors. And let's just start with some of this. So 2/3 of the world's population today is made up of millennials and Gen Z. And these are young adults who have redefined certain terms, as I say it. So one is chat. So I don't know about everybody else, but when I grew up as a kid in Dublin, Ireland, when I had a chat, I would pick up a device off of a table somewhere in my home, which had a wire coming out of the back connected to a brick that had another wire going out of the back into a wall, and I would have a chat with one of my friends. Chat today, completely redefined. Chat is picking up a mobile device and typing some content onto that device, adding some images, adding some video to it, adding some emojis to it, and sending it to a variety of people around the planet. That's what chat is. It's a radically different experience. And connecting is also different. So connecting was, and to some degree still is meeting people in person. But connecting now is different for this population of people. Connecting now is when I can see you and hear you. And I always remember having dinner with my younger son in San Luis Obispo, California, probably about 6 or 8 months ago now. And over dinner, I said to him, "When was the last time you had a chat with Sammy?" Sammy's his brother who lives in Zurich, Switzerland. So he goes, "Yesterday." That's good. And then I said to him, "When was the last time you connected with him?" And he scratched his head and said, "About 3 weeks ago." And that is exactly what I just said, because chat, he was texting with him. They do that all the time. But connecting, seeing and hearing him is not as frequent. And these young adults have also redefined so have different expectations, if you will, in terms of reacting to things. It's, they live in this world of now. It's like, I want to contact you now. I need the approval now. I want to discuss this topic with you now. They've got little patience for the sort of weekly recurring meetings and things of that nature. So they're very much into sort of action-oriented events. And why is all this important? This is important because it speeds up everything. It takes the friction out of their work experience. It speeds up things like innovation. It's a much more agile environment. And this is all about focusing on increasing the top line and reducing the bottom line expenses. A second topic I'd like to talk about is sort of the video being the new communication. Video is the new voice, so to speak. And there was a study done some time back by a professor from the University of LA, Albert Mehrabian, that talked about the verbal and nonverbal messaging. And he did an analysis of communications, and it boiled down to 3 things. boil down to words, tone, and body language. And I find this very interesting. So words actually only account for 7% of a communication. Tone accounts for 38% of a communication, but body language accounts for 55% of a communication, which I find sort of wow. But it also sort of reminds me of a story many years back earlier in my career. I was working for a financial services firm in New York, and the CEO called me about 6 months after I joined the firm. And so I was a little nervous, a little apprehensive. It's like, oh my God, it's like, I've been here 6 months, the CEO's never called me. And so I pick up the phone and I go, hello. And this was the conversation. He said, I just wanted to call you and thank you. This was circa 2005. I just wanted to call you and thank you for putting in that high-def video conferencing system. And I said, it's great. He said, it works flawlessly. It's fantastic. And I asked, why was this so important to you? Because this is one of the things that he said as an objective when I first joined the firm. He said, when I'm talking to a partner on the other side of the planet, and I ask a really hard question, I don't want to hear the answer. I want to see the answer. And when you think about that, and as I've done many times since then, it's like when you're asked a hard question, or you ask a hard question, and people look at their shoes, or they look at the ceiling, or they look over here, you're kind of wondering, it's like, well, is the answer written on their shoes? But when people know the answer to the hard question, there is no hesitation. They engage, they look at you, and they answer the question. I think that's sort of super important in everything in life. In terms of, sort of where are we in this coronavirus world that we're now living through and experiencing, and sort of what's changing. And I think there are some things we will get out of this. It's just a matter of time. The sooner, the better. And I feel sorry for all those people, millions of people who have been negatively impacted by it. But I hope is that we can recover quickly from it. And this world has shown a lot of resilience. So I expect that to happen. In the meantime, though, we've had like lots of different experiences over the last, call it 12 weeks, 14 weeks. One of those different experiences is the work from home model, or as my wife refers to it, as the living at work model, which is, it actually works. It's, the productivity that companies around the world are seeing from people being able to work from home is rather significant. And it's not because they're working longer hours. It's because they don't have that constant interruption that they get in the work environment. They're not exhausted by the commute, etc. And so there was always a lot of myths about the productivity that will be achieved by people working from home. Those myths have now left. Many organizations are now considering the work from home model as a permanent part of the way they will engage in our futures. And it's also changed a lot of perspectives on what can be done on video and what can't be done on video. I was just reading earlier today about a couple that adopted a baby over the Zoom platform. I think that's fantastic. You can see courts now operating in a video world. You can see people who have been unfortunately incarcerated being able to connect with their families using video. And these are sort of wonderful use cases. But also in the business world, there was an article published by one of the media channels recently that talked about bankers, investment bankers, and how investment bankers had suddenly, discovered the art of video conferencing and how they can actually conduct business over video on a global scale. And the article had some quotes from some bankers saying how they found it to be incredibly efficient. And there was a statement in there which sort of made me smile, which was, I will not fly to London. This was a New York banker. I will not fly to London for that one-day meeting anymore. So you think about the consequences of all this, the productivity, the efficiency, the increase in the work-life balance, being able to be home, to be with the family, to attend parent-teacher conference. and the impact on the carbon footprint. So I think that's wonderful from an impact on and how we'll see things changing. It's very it's very humbling to be at Zoom right now. As you mentioned a moment ago, Alicia, keeping companies operating on a global scale, keeping governments running so that countries can work through this pandemic, and also connecting people on a social basis, whether it's church services, whether it's bar mitzvahs, whether it's a wedding. The Queen had her birthday on Zoom, and you got things like Saturday Night Live on Zoom. I was watching a football game earlier this morning, I think it was in Denmark, where the stadium was empty. There was no audience, no fans physically in the stadium, but Zoom was around, zooming around the stadium everywhere. It was quite fantastic, and it's extremely humbling, quite honestly, to be a part of this company today and keeping the world going. Last point I'd like to make is to talk about education. Education is fundamental. I often refer to my own education, whilst it's much more in the